Tonight, I want to talk about what is quickly becoming or has been recently one of my favorite mechs to run, especially if you're a Capellan, Free Worlds League, Periphery, or Mercenary player. I like the Free Worlds League. I like Capellans. I like the Periphery. And so this one ends up being one that I consider to add to a lot of my lists, and that's the Flea 17. This mech is so good. It's only 23 points. It has a TMM of 3, a movement of 16. But the kicker on this thing is that it is a damage 220. OV0, armor structures 2-2, so total of 4 hit points, and it's got energy weapons. It's got rear 100, but rear weapons are kind of hit or miss. I don't count on them for nothing. But for 23 points, you get a pretty quick, pretty fast light mech at 16-inch move, a TMM of 3, where I know there's a lot of other light mechs out there that get that TMM 4, they're moving 20, they're moving 22, they're moving 24. But this thing having 2 damage at short and 2 damage at medium is an assassin. It is so good. Having that 2 damage at medium means that this thing can be running around, keeping its TMM up, keeping its distance from the enemy, hiding behind hills, hiding behind woods, hiding behind buildings, taking full advantage of that TMM and that cover, and the distance. Remember, when you're at short range, the target modifier is 0. When you're at medium range, it's 2. Well, when you're a medium mech, that might not be a big deal. When you're a heavy mech, might not be a big deal. But when you're a light mech and you only have 3, 4, 5 hit points, and you only have your TMM and your target's pilot skill ability, and they're hitting you on 7s, that can be rough justice for you because you can really quickly lose all your armor, be indestructible, or be dead. The Flea has all the advantages of a light mech with that speed, with that TMM of 3, but they get to add that additional 2 because they can keep that distance. And that's huge because you go from a 7 to a 9, you're not taking nearly as many hits. And if you can maintain cover on top of that, oftentimes when you're at short range, there's very little opportunity for cover, right? When you can keep that distance, you have way more opportunities for cover. You also, because of your speed, can do these wide flanking maneuvers with this thing, get behind someone and be shooting at medium range into their rear arc and be picking up an additional shot into the rear on top of that. So many light mechs, you're talking about your Locusts, your Spiders, right? Your Hermes, they only do one shot at medium range. But this thing, this Flea 17, does 2. The only cons that I really see with this is its light hit points, but because your TMM is so high and because the points really aren't that bad at 23, and you're maintaining that distance, and say you need 10s to hit this thing because you're maintaining cover behind a hill or behind a building and you're at medium range, like who wants to take that shot? But you're going to be putting 2 back into your opponent. The only other real con that I see in taking this as your like primary scout mech is that it's really only available to mercenaries, periphery, free world leagues, and Capellans. I think this is like a must-have if you play one of those factions. It's a scout that absolutely slaps. It is an amazing hover hunter because it can run hovercraft down, it can get in their rear, and it can put reliable shots on target on it. It's a great light mech hunter because it can chase them down and at medium range. Like because of its speed, it can get to where they are. Whereas a lot of your mediums and heavy mechs, even if they're those faster, heavier mechs, like oftentimes just have circles run around them and they just can't get into position where they need to be. But this thing can close that distance and take advantage of getting behind them, getting close in, outmaneuvering them. And when your opponent knows that this thing does 2 shots at medium versus their 1 shot because they're running a Locust or something or a Spider, they know that this Flea is going to outmatch them every time. It's also a great objective grabber because it can get on objective and it can defend itself better because it can hold things off a little bit more. The other thing that I really think that this mech excels at is being a good capture the flag hunter. And what I mean by that is if your opponent grabs a flag and is trying to run away and get back to their base, this thing can chase that unit down because it has such a high speed. And even if it can't close within 2, it can still put 2 shots on that objective grabber and try to eliminate them before they get onto their base. And since a lot of people are running very light hovercraft or skimmers, to fulfill that role, he has a decent shot of stopping them before they get to the base, or getting on the base and having enough firepower to deal with it when he gets on his opponent's base. So I think you should really be considering this mech if it's available to you in those Capellan, Free World Leagues, Periphery, and Mercenary army lists. There are a couple variants of this Flea. I think some of them are okay and some of them are not quite as good. The first one I want to talk about is the Flea 20. It has some limited periphery availability in that I think the Magistry of Canopus and maybe the Franc Reaches can take it, as well as the Capellans. It is 24 points. What's nice about it is it picks up stealth and ECM, so it can bubble out C3 networks, and then that stealth just makes it that much harder to kill. So stealth at medium range on a mech is a +1 to hit, and at long range is a +2. It still maintains that TMM of 3 and that speed of 6. It also is a 2/2/1 for its attack. So if you're playing Capellans, or if you're one of the rare Magistry of Canopus players, like this one is one that you should consider, I believe. The 21, I think, is overcosted. It maintains that ECM and that stealth. It's Periphery, Mercenaries, Free World Leagues, and Capellans. It's 29 points, though. It does go up to TMM 4 with a movement of 22, and it's short and medium are 2, but it's 29 points, and that's a lot. When you get into 30, 35 points, when you get to those light scout mechs that don't really have a lot of hit points, this one only has 2 armor and 1 structure. Spending that much gets to be a little too much, even though you're gaining all this extra maneuverability and TMM. I don't think this one would be quite worth it. Wolf's Dragoons have access to the Flea 16. It's a movement of 18, so a TMM of 3, but it's only 2/1. So I don't think that you're really gaining much by using it. It's, it's not too different than a Locust. So I guess if you were going to run a Locust as a Wolf's Dragoons player, you might as well run this because you get to go 18 instead of 16. The 19 is a 2/1 for its attack, but it's only 2 TMM of 2 and a move of 12. Same with the 15. It's a TMM of 2 and a move of 12. Really, with these ones, you're better off taking a Wasp or a Stinger just because you gain jump. These fleas do not have, and the same goes for the Flea 4, which actually loses a hit point. It only has 3 total health. They're all TMM 2 with 12. You might as well take a Stinger or a Wasp because at least you're gaining jump. It's just not worth it to pick up that 2 shot at short range with these 3 models. I think to lose the jump, you're not going to be that survivable, and you're not really picking up much. You're also slower, so it's going to be a lot harder for you to close to be able to use that second shot. So you might as well do a Wasp or a Stinger and pick up jump. Now, the Capellans do have access to the Fire Ant. It's only available during Civil War. It is 15 points. It is a TMM of 3 with a move of 16. It only has a short of 2 and a medium of 0, and it's only 3 health. But for 15 points, you're also picking up a heat. So this one may have some limited play if you're trying to do a heat build. It has the speed to close and to get within short range, but because it only has 3 hit points, I think you're probably going to have limited use of it. But if you really want a mech that does really well and fulfills an excellent scout mech role, I would definitely look at the Flea 17 if you play one of those factions. That 2 at medium range is fantastic. And it's basically the same cost as a Spider. I know it can't jump, but a Spider is 1/1. I know it's 5 hit points, and I know it's got jump on the Spider, but this Flea with that 2 at medium range can really do some work, and it can engage. What's so great about it, you guys, is that it can engage targets at medium range effectively. And because of its speed, like, guys are just going to want to shoot at something else, because who wants to roll 10s to hit when they could roll 7s or 8 on your heavy mech, right? So consider this model, consider this unit for your lists. As far as models go, there are 2 metal ones. There's a more modern looking Ironwind metal one. There's an older style one. I like to refer to it as the Gonk Droid. It's the red one on the screen here. It just reminds me of the Gonk Droid from Star Wars. And then, of course, they have a new plastic one that is available from Catalyst Game Labs. Let me know if you've ever run the Flea 17 or any of the other Fleas in the comments below, what you think about it. I know in that pirate list that I talked about, it did really, really well and was probably one of the stars of the show. The other thing I did, because I needed to chew up points in that pirate list because I was running so many light mechs, and that list was really themed around that, I made the Flea skill 3, just so those medium range shots connected more, and that really helped it excel. And I think it was only like 28 points when it's all said and done. And I really enjoyed having the Flea in my pirate list, and I like putting him in a lot of other lists. A lot of my Capellan lists, I'll try to add him in there if I'm able to do so as well. All right, hope you guys had a good week, and may the blessings of Blake be upon you.